Hey, welcome to another Motivational Monday. Today, it's Brian O'Neill and myself on here because I just jumped on Brian's amazing podcast, W2 Prison Break. That's a writer downer. And for this Motivational Monday, I thought, you know what? The interview I did of Brian with Brian on Brian's show, I literally turned the table on him. So I interviewed him on his show. I think the whole conversation, unedited, is something you guys are going to want to digest. And so just click the link below and jump over to Brian's YouTube channel and catch literally the video interview we just did. Brian, thoughts on why they should go there?
Yeah, we talked a lot about leaving your W-2, a lot of fear, and a lot of, like the risk associated, all the stuff that we paint in our minds about why we can't do stuff, and then being around the right people. I mean, we gave a list of like 10 action items here during the interview. So as you said, it's a writer downer, but you really got to watch it for sure. So great stuff.
Love it. Head on over and enjoy it, guys. All right, Brian, welcome back to the show. And I'd be remiss not to tell the Wicked Smart listeners, man, go check out the other episodes Brian's been on with me and with other people and me in groups. So welcome back to the show, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me on so many times. It's like the umpteenth time, but we're mixing it up today, folks. And I'm hijacking the Smart Real Estate Coach podcast, and I'm interviewing Chris today. So he doesn't know what I'm going to ask him. We're going to have some fun with this, but Chris, are you game for me to hijack your show?
I am game. I just thought when you said that word, this is the third time only. My good friend Stephen Weston did it, I think, only once. Zach, my son-in-law and partner, did it just a few weeks ago and had a specific thought pattern, and then you. So you are among the three, Brian. And yes, I am ready. I prefer to keep it organic, as you know.
Well, I'm honored to be amongst the three. That's a great group to be, and we'll talk about the importance of being in the right group during this hijack. And you just we did the same for my show. So you hijacked my show, and that was a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to this. Okay, my first question for you, Chris, is, and this literally came up, I think it was yesterday, on your Monday morning rant, which you did on Tuesday, which is in our private Slack channel for all of our associates, where you were talking about 08, right? And we're not predicting anything here, but it's starting, some people might feel like that we could be in that type of a situation. There's a lot of uncertainty with rates and inflation and layoffs. People just don't seem to know what to do, right? And you were talking about going against the grain, buying houses in 08. And your message to the group, which again, this is something that was missing from my life. I would have been part of the group, listening to the media, to the people on TV telling you to, hold tight and panic. You had a different message, which was block out the noise, put on your ear canceling headphones. How important is it, number one, to go against the grain in times like this? And, what advice would you give for those who are listening to block out the wrong people?
Okay, if I can remember, there's a few points I want to hit based on your question. This is really good. Like, there's all pieces here. First, so they get some context, when you said the word rant, Brian or I, every Monday morning, do what he said, a rant. And we post that on the associate private Slack channel. It's usually something very current and very relevant. So just so they know they're not in our community. You mentioned 08, Brian. I'll get to the main question, but the fact is, yes, there is some, like, again, we're not predicting, you just disclose that. But what I will say is there's some weirdness about it that is similar, and that's the uncertainty, right?
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of stuff that's not even remotely close, just so everybody knows, like not even remotely close economically, but it doesn't matter. There's uncertainty. So when there's uncertainty, what does the media do, to your point? They scream, because I don't remember the stat, Brian. I don't know if you remember it, but Tony Robbins stated recently a stat that said the media, any of those outlets, are like 66% more effective. The ratings go up that predictable when they do negative news. Like, that was a fact. So if that's a fact, there's one reason not to listen to them at all for your life. Forget real estate for a second. But as far as going against the grain, Kim has brought up to me many times, and that is in 2013, when I got sort of back on the saddle. It actually started February of 12. When I started thinking about getting back on the saddle, meaning I was beat up and wanted to get back in the business, didn't know how, what, when, or why. I purposefully remembered back in the 90s when one of my mentors said to me, hey, when the crowd's going this way, you are certain to lose unless you go in the opposite direction, something to that effect. And it was in the realtor world, but doesn't matter. Here's a fact, and I'm not downgrading anyone. I'm not poo-pooing on people in general in society, but are all the people out there, are they the type of people, society in general, that get up every single day, do whatever it takes for however long it takes, no matter how hard it is to accomplish all their goals? No. So if that's the general consensus running in that direction, probably run the other way. And so now is a phenomenal time to take advantage of that. I mean that in a good way, and go be the guide, go be the specialist, go be the authority for sellers and buyers that desperately need you right now. That's a fact. So I don't know if I nailed that, but that's what's come to mind.
You did, as always, and I'll just touch on that a little bit too, because you mentioned the advice you got from a mentor of yours in the 90s, and you did the same thing for me and our group in 2020 when the pandemic hit. And I was still in my W-2 and I was in panic mode, and we were looking for guidance, and you just confidently said in front of the group is like, don't freeze, double down. Right. And as a result of taking that advice, instead of listening to everyone else who was like, all right, stay inside for the next 3 months and just, hope and pray, which we had to do anyways, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was one of the best years of my life. I bought a bunch of properties and I quit my job. So because I was around the right people and I followed the advice of my coach, you and the group, I was able to have a great experience. So that, which leads me into my next question, which is, how important is it to be around the right people, like-minded people, and the right room? How critical is that?
Yeah, so I'm gonna first, if it's okay, go back to what you said, because there was a window, that piece you just said about the COVID start. There was a very short window. Now, I didn't know, you didn't know, nobody knew this, but in hindsight, there was a window from like March to May of 20 that was open. We didn't know it, but when I screamed double down, our properties as a community, the Wicked Smart community, you were part of it, went triple as far as how many properties you put under contract. Now the market got hot after that, as everybody knows, and it got tougher to get deals. So that made it even more important that there was a 90-day window. Now, I'm not saying there's a 90-day window in this economy. I'm saying there's probably a year to 3-year window. So it's a lot better right now for you to attack it. But just so people have context for that again. Now, how important is it for hanging around? Here's what I always say, make no mistake. Who you hang out with is not a piece of what you do. It's everything driving your results right now. It's, when I say people, it's the ones you consciously hang out with. It's the family, it's the friends, it's the coworkers. It's who you let in your mind, and it's who you listen to on radio, TV, podcast, YouTube, social media crap, which you shouldn't even be on. But it's all that stuff you're letting in. You only have so much space up there, right? We only have so much space. So it's everything. If that's not too broad for you, it's everything where we're going. 100%.
Yeah. Awesome. So I have one follow-up to that, but I always want to go back to something you said about the 90-day, because I remember that from March to May, where the community was having great success, myself included. And again, that year, September, I left my W-2 job that I worked for 17 years. The fact that we all doubled down, or the ones who listened, not everyone listened, but the ones who listened, I'm now still 3 years later, still reaping the benefits from those moments, that speech that you gave, or that advice that you gave, because, and I'll let you explain it, our creative financing deals can be 3, 4, 5 years or longer, depending on what you do with the seller. So we have a lot of that stuff that's cashing out now, and it's because we chose not to freeze.
I do have a couple of comments on that. We had a closing last, not probably 10 days ago now, that was definitely just pre-COVID, and it just closed out. The payday 3 was like 100-something grand. Now there were some headaches in that deal, but it doesn't matter. I always say to you and others that the payday 3s on these things are beautiful when you see it out. Now let me comment on a couple of things. So there's sort of, when I was screaming about that, Brian, and then we'll go back to your question, which I probably already lost. When I was screaming about that, I screamed about the perfect triangle. And so I don't want to lose sight of that. It still exists. It'll exist forever. And it's the 3 sides of the triangle are being part of a movement. Creative real estate is growing and growing and growing and growing. Why not getting ahead of that? Second, by being part of a movement, affect lives. I just said to your last question, if you can be the guide, people need you right now. Like they need you. They're concerned because they do listen to the media. And then third, because of that, you've improving their lives, you financially have a benefit. That's the third piece. So you have a perfect triangle right now for the next, I don't know, I'm not an economist and the billionaires don't know, but I'm guessing 1 to 3 years. Now I'm certain I didn't ask your original question. I answered your original question. What the heck was it?
Well, it was because we're talking about the importance of being around the right people, and I
Yeah.
thought it would be a great segue into talking about the opportunity coming up to be around the right people, which is the live event, our live
Oh,
event
gotcha.
in September. So let's please talk about that, and if there's a way for the listeners to come to the event.
Well, okay, a couple things. The little history for especially if you're a new Wicked Smart listener, we started this particular event, which is run yearly since 2016, in a basement in the Chamber of Commerce on a dreary day, and it smelled like you were in a basement. Okay, there was like 14 or 60 of us around a little U table. That was our first event. As you know, now we're in a ballroom, and the energy and the family environment and sort of I'll call it dream team environment, because that's what we bring there, you guys and everybody. That's happening the week of September 11th. I think it's like the 13th and 14th or 14th and 15th. But if you go to the website, you'll find it, qlslive.com. If no other reason, come talk to Brian, come talk to these other people that have done stuff that you want to do. If no other reason, I'd love to meet you. Thanks for mentioning it. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I will be there. And, unfortunately, we weren't able to have live events for a little bit. And the fact that they're live now, it's such a different experience than when we had to do it kind of virtual or as hybrid. So they have been, and coming to these events, I just want to make sure that the listeners understand this is I had conversations with one or two people. Okay. And this is something that you coached me up on. Targeted. I said, okay, these folks are going to be at the event. I want to make sure that I speak to them. And I had conversations with them that maybe lasted 20, 30 minutes that have completely changed my business. So that's, if you come for any reason, it would be for something like that.
Yeah, the side conversations. I think if you pulled any one of the individuals, Link comes to mind and Mike McCready's comes to mind, who are here since 2017, they'll all tell you that the event's great, but what's even better is what you just mentioned, the side conversations, invaluable.
Yeah, totally. Okay, Chris, just switching gears a little bit here, but staying along the same lines of the uncertainty and going against the grain. There's a lot of folks out there, myself included, years ago, who just I was filled with doubt. I was filled with fear, especially when it comes to real estate. You just think you have to be some type of maybe special person to do real estate deals. And it might be challenging for someone who is, just getting started or thinking about it. They're listening to your show. Maybe they've listened to all 400 episodes or how many you're up to now. And they're saying, well, Chris makes it sound so easy. He just was produced this way. And I know that's not the case. So maybe you can comment a little bit about what you had to go through to get to this point. I think it gives a lot of context to the listeners and people who think in that, well, you have to be some type of special person to be able to do this.
Well, I'm sort of smirking because I don't know where to start with this for 32 years, but let me just say this. Business is not, you and I say this all the time, entrepreneurship's not easy. I don't care what industry you're in. I'll go to real estate in a second, but it's not easy, period. But it's not easy because the upside is so great and the lifestyle is so great if you do it right. I said yesterday on calls, Brian, I think it was the only day you weren't there with me, and I probably said it too aggressively as I thought about this morning, but I said to the group, any moron, it's exactly what I said, can build a business or get on the phone. We were talking about two different things. When you feel great and when the wind's in your sails, it's those times when it's tough that form you. So if I'm tracking with this question, I knew Zippo about real estate in 1991. So I'm dating myself, is when I started hanging out with someone that was a friend of my father's. So he was flipping land and doing some things. I just hung out with him. We did a few deals together. I got intrigued by it. Started reading some books. Then in the 90s, and I'm just giving some context to how you can do it. This is exactly what I did. I didn't do anything special. I said, okay, I'm going to be a realtor. Never was one before. I said to my broker owner, how many houses can I expect to sell? I don't know if I've told you the story. He said, first year, 6 to 12. And I thought, to this day, I thought that's depressing. In a year, I couldn't even pay my bills with that. So I went and I found someone that did 100 homes a year. She was a few towns over. And I said, can I shadow you? Can I be on your team? Funny, because we just talked about this on your show, W2 Prison Break. And she said, yes, I got my legs, but I also met her mentor and hired him. And the rest is how I built that company. So, and I could keep going, but if you just go, what do I want? Now, this happens to be a real estate show. So I'm going to be biased and say, if you want creative real estate, you say, who do I want? Okay, who's living the values, doing all the things that I want to do and still active in the trenches? Okay, just go hang out with them and do exactly what they say. It's all I did. So I don't know if I skirted around that or if you think that was adequate, but that's all I did and still do.
Yeah, no, you absolutely did. And again, there wasn't anything, heroic about what you just said, right? You got around the right people, you started doing some things, and you also have, I think you've developed quite the mindset, which is super important. I want to touch on that because I think most people that are listening or on the outside looking in, I hear it all the time, is I can't do that, this won't work. The what ifs, and
Yeah.
as a result of that, they just stay stuck in their current situation, which is usually their W-2 that they probably don't like. But as a result of not knowing the outcome or not seeing the outcome or not having a realistic timeline, they just stay frozen.
Yeah, I agree. What made me harden to that, let me just say this, so I forgot to say it to your last question, but your mindset brought it up. And that is all the sort of roadblocks, the 2008 crash, all the stuff as recent as 2 or 3 weeks ago. And you and I were talking about some challenges you had and I had. All that stuff is what makes you better. It's what hones the skills. It's what makes you tweak how you operate. It's what makes you tweak your procedures. It's what makes you tweak your daily routines. All this stuff gets developed over time, and you kind of layer it. As you know, we call it stacking in the community. Super important concept.
Yeah, and anything worth any long-term goal worth accomplishing isn't something that's going to happen overnight. I mean, I just feel as if too many people are wanting a result in a short amount of time, whether it's 3 months or 6 months or even a year or even 2 years, and not looking at this like, hey, I want my life to be this way and I'm not expiring tomorrow. So let's give this a little bit of time. I think if people can do that and make that mindset shift, they'll have a much better experience, because when you get to that 6 or 9 or 1 year mark and you don't have this outcome, you end up wanting to quit. Can you comment on that? Because we deal with this all the time.
Yeah, I want to comment on that. I want you to bring to light the conversation you and I heard or had last week with Kelly in our community, because this I want to scream about, and I do it on a lot of shows. You and I are both marketed to by companies in the real estate and other industries, but let's talk about real estate, that do promise you can do this fast. You can do this quick. You can make $1 million in real estate. It's all over the place. The difference is we try to out-scream that. There's just so many of them doing that. They're good marketers. We try to out-scream that and say, hey, this is a long-term process. This is 3 to 7 years, but you'll never have to look back. And so if the listener can get one thing straight, it's that it is hard, but the upside is enormous, and you got to give it 3 to 7 years and never look back. So can you relate to the conversation? We had someone in our mastermind group, as you recall, I'll say whining a little bit, whatever. They're just complaining about, oh, I haven't done a deal yet. And Kelly, one of our members, spoke up, and I don't know if you recall the story, but it was very to the point. It only took a few minutes.
I do. I remember it because it was tremendous, and it was perfect timing. But Kelly has started multiple 7-figure businesses. He came into our group, and she was talking about not taking a salary for 2.5 years in her business. 2.5 years. And then and this was during COVID, she started a staffing business during COVID, which is
all things.
Yeah, who does that, right? But 2.5 years of not taking a salary, and then bam, the floodgates open. And she gave some terminology that made a lot of sense, but it's like once that happened, it was like gushing, right? And then she's now an eight-figure business 15 years later, and I said to the group, I said, if you knew that, would you give it the 10 to 15 years? If you know you were going to have this result, or even half of that, would you wait the 10 to 15 years?
Right. Spot on.
Yeah. And the answer to me is yeah. So more to your point of all these folks who are guaranteeing this short-term success, you've done a great job of saying, hey, it's going to take 3 to 7 years, potentially longer. I mean, I'm not in this for 7 years. I'm not in this for 3 years. I'm in this for life. I mean, I love real estate, but
Well,
I
let
would
me,
say
can I turn this
yeah,
back?
please.
How long is it for you right now since you started the course? I want to say it's going on 3.5, guess?
It was November of 19. So it's 3.5. What's that? 3.5 years. Yeah.
Okay. And you're still learning. I think it's safe to say I still learn every week. So you got to be still learning, right? I mean, that's safe to say.
Completely. I'm not even close to there. I mean, am I
So
a
much
lot
more to do.
further than I used to be, but I'm not even close.
Yeah. So sorry I broke your thought pattern there, but I just had to make sure people put this in again, a little reference for how long you've been at this.
No, no, no. I mean, that's important because that also goes by very quickly, Chris. I mean, I can remember the first time that you and I spoke on the phone, like it was yesterday. And so time goes by fast, which is like, I'm just really big on the realistic timelines and understanding that it can go by pretty quickly if you put your head down and really, focus on your goal and the daily activities that you got to get there. Just give yourself time, right?
You did something. I'm going to remind you of this. You did
Mhm.
something that I want the listeners to hear that I think maybe one other person did since then. And I invite every single person listening to do this. I'm going to open up a can of worms here. You sent me a video very pointedly, and you were public, at least to me, about what you wanted to accomplish, when you wanted to accomplish it, and that you were committed to being in the community. And I'll never forget that. And I just said to everyone, why don't you do that? And you just talk about being around the right people. Like I'm giving all the opportunity for them to go, okay, I'm in. Show me how to do this. That's it. Not easy, but I just gave the opportunity to do what Brian did.
And folks, I would definitely take Chris up on that. This is something that, I mean, I had a personal conversation with Chris 3.5 years ago that was 15 minutes to change my life. Right. And this was after downloading all the YouTube videos, going through the podcast, which we talked a little bit about manifestation when you were interviewing me. This is something that I've been searching for a long time, right? Like I was looking at a different avenue of real estate and multifamily. I had a bunch of fear associated around that. I stumbled upon your podcast, but it wasn't something that was supposed to happen.
Right.
And then just the openness of it was just very, very easy to get to you. Like a lot of these gurus that are out there, I just called you a guru, by the way, but they're not accessible, right? Like you're talking to other people maybe below them. I was able to speak to you. I mean, that's super important, folks. You got to understand that, Chris and the family, we're in it with you. Like we're doing the deals with you. Chris is still helping me do a deal right now as we speak. So I don't know, maybe comment on that a little bit on how important it is, because I just don't think you get that in other places.
Yeah, as you were saying that, I'm thinking to myself, I don't know a different way, Brian, honestly. Like we started the company by just being in the trenches with people. And I know why the people don't do it. It's a ton of upfront work. So let me give you an example. Because we are so interactive and hands-on, when someone starts brand new, let's use you, was my time way heavier at the beginning of our relationship? Sure. Now, quite frankly, it's fun because you call with higher level deals. Like the deal you're working on now is a sub 2 deal. That's fun. Like that's that. So it's totally different. That's why a lot of people don't venture into the space of partnering or we call it consulting, but we're in the trenches with the student doing the deal, even though they own it, right? So
yeah,
I think it's the entire thing. I think it was Brian Tracy on my podcast, and maybe it was someone else that said interactive learning is the most effective learning you can have. And I don't know, I'm not so naive to say there's no one, but I don't know of another community that does that interactive hands-on. And our coaches, i.e. you, Stephen, Russ, Mike, they're all people that went through the program. There's frankly no other way to do it in our world because we also specialize in the creative real estate. And so we've got a cool thing. And I think that's what you're referring to. And we're going to continue it. I'll even throw my email out for those that I said, hey, send me a video and tell me why you want to work with us. It's Chris@smartrealestatecoach.com. Yes, I check it. So send along. It won't be every 10 minutes. I don't check it that often, but I check it.
he does check it. I can confirm, folks. He's answered me a few times too. But no, you mentioned a good thing you mentioned 3 or 4 specific people, all who have, and myself included, all who have left their W-2 jobs as a result of, that's one of your goals, is to get people out of there. And that's why I came to the group. Like I said, okay, this community, these coaches, this guy, this is my exit out of the W-2, as I wanted to leave the job. And the stories just continue to happen. We just had another guy, Rick Abbiati, who worked a government job for 30 years. That just left
30.
his job. 30. Yeah. 30 years. So talking to that group of people, Chris, who they've earmarked real estate. Maybe they're just in the beginning phases. They don't even know where to go. Obviously, we love creative real estate. We think it's the best way to buy deals. But what would be maybe a tip or two or a starting point for those people who are in the W-2? They want to get out. They want to get into real estate. What should they do?
All right. I'm going to answer the question, but indirectly, I have to give resources, right? Because it's stupid not to. I'd be remiss. I'd be holding back on them. Here's why I say that. All those marketers that you and I talked about, and I didn't poo-poo on anyone in particular, and I wouldn't do that. But what I will say is we are big on free. And I'm going to tell you what I mean by that in a second. The reason I am big on free is I want you, the listener, to go, look, I don't know what I want to do yet. I want to look somewhere in the industry of real estate. And I want you to be able to do that, at least the initial part, for free. Because once you come to, if it's us, I want you to be committed. I want you to know you want it. It's not an experiment. It's not a try, because you won't win that way. I promise you, you won't win. And whether you go to us or someone else, don't go try it. Decide what you want to do. So they can grab the free books, wickedsmartbooks.com / I think it's, let me just go to wickedsmartbooks.com. Okay. So we don't mess them up. You can also go to a free master's class. If you can deal with my New England accent for 55 minutes, go to smartrealestatecoach.com / master's class. Now you got two things that you went, okay, cool. You can go on YouTube and camp out for several hours if you want and look at about, oh gosh, Brian, I don't even know if you know the answer, but there's probably 200 deals posted on the Deal Structure Sunday PlayStation play list on YouTube. So that's all for free. So that's the call to action. That was a long answer to your question, because then you could send me that video by email and go, hey, I went through your stuff. I want to do this with you. And we'll see how serious you are. Depending on how serious you are, you'll work with me and Brian, by the way, personally, in the high 6 level, or you'll work with one of the other amazing coaches at the other level. So long answer. Sorry, Brian.
No, I love that. And, you said, hey, we want people that are going to decide. We want people who are committed, because we care. We care about them wanting to get out of their job. There's a bunch of different ways to make $1 million in real estate or to get out of it. So it's super important to do that research and not, again, hey, I'll try. This was me, by the way. I'll try wholesaling. I'll try a little bit of rehabbing. I'll try a little bit of multifamily. And as a result, I did nothing. As you know, I've told you many times, it wasn't until I did exactly what you suggested, okay, which was to, look at everything, go through all the YouTube videos, go through the podcast, go through the master's class, have a conversation with you. And then I decided and I committed. And I had the experience that we're talking about here. And that has happened multiple times for the people who have done the exact same thing. So if you're looking to do that, this is what you talk about a la carte all the time. I'm going to ask you to comment on that.
Yeah.
It's not a la carte. It's not 7 out of 10. It's all 10. How critical is that? And how many people do you see make the mistake of the 7 out of the 10?
Yeah, I'll do that and I'll paint a visual and we can try to wrap up. What Brian's talking about, I say it all the time, but it's worth going over here as we wrap up. And that is, there's I'll call it a formula, but there's a protocol. When Brian sent me the video and said, I'll be coachable, I'll do whatever it takes, Brian has not shown up unless he's on vacation for anything we do. And I'm sure some of that's like, oh my God, I got to go this again. But he does every single piece. He doesn't go, you know what, this week I don't need that, so I'll just go do this. It's not a buffet. It's not a choice. Sorry to say. It's here's the formula, here's the protocol, here's the support system, here's the people, go. And if you do that, I can say you'll have a great experience. I don't know you, the listener, yet. So I don't know if that means you'll do a deal in 60 days or 600. I don't know that until we talk, until I get to work with you, until I play around with it for 90 days. Then I'll probably be predictable for you. So that's what he means by a la carte. And if I could paint a picture, Brian, this just came to mind, this visual. everyone wants to be part of sort of a wave. I called it a perfect storm earlier, but the fact is everybody wants to be part of like the next thing. Everyone does, me included. Hey, I want to be included in that. Well, creative real estate back in the 90s was like maybe 2 or 3% of total transactions. And this is a hard stat to find. You've heard me say this, but it's increasing dramatically. I would say it's in the teens now, approaching 20 maybe, because of all the factors that are going on right now. So if there's ever a time for you to like ride the wave and then get done and go, that was cool for 7 years or 3 years, whatever it is, this is not a bad space to do that in. It's not the only space, but it's a really good space to do that in right now, given all the factors pulling on the economy versus watching the wave go out, crash, and you go, yeah, shit, I should have done that. I should have. Don't get caught in it, guys. Ride it with us. You'll have a great experience. No, it won't be easy, but we'll teach you how to do it.
Well, that's the key. It won't be easy. It never is. But with the support and the group and everyone lifting you up, it's a lot easier than you make it out to be in your head. All right, Chris, I think this has been a pretty good hijack. I gotta say,
appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad we did it. Everyone, make it a great day.
Thanks for being on, and thanks for working extra hard because that was more fun for me.
You got it.